we go back to the fundamental, I know people get tired of hearing me say this, we go back to the fundamental issue we face here, which is very, very difficult to get a diplomatic resolution in the North absent a resolution to the conflict in Gaza, absent a ceasefire in Gaza, which is why we continue to push for that ceasefire, because we think it'll help make it much easier to reach a resolution.
So how do you see this incident impact the Gaza ceasefire talks then?
I think it's too early to say. Look, this is an incident that just occurred in the past few hours. We're continuing to gather information about it. I wouldn't want to speculate or make any predictions about what might happen.
A couple of things more. Hezbollah has accused Israel of sort of launching this attack. You said you were gathering information. Is there anything in that information that would lead you to sort of reject that accusation?
I just don't want to offer any type of assessment on this incident, one way or the other, at this point.
Are you trying to make an assessment, though? Like, in your gathering of information, are you going to be able to offer an assessment tomorrow or the next day? Or is the United States going to be completely like, this has nothing to do with me, I'm not going to offer?
We are continuing to gather information, and when we have something to say about it, we will certainly say it, but not before then.
Okay, one final thing. Regardless of this incident, although it's a little bit hard to sort of leave that aside right now, but over the past couple of days, we have heard Prime Minister Netanyahu especially talk about how unsustainable it is in north, in the border. And last night, the cabinet basically said military action would be needed to allow thousands of residents to go back to their homes. They've effectively expanded the objectives of the war. So does the United States see military action from Israel more likely in light of that?
So we agree that it is unsustainable for tens of thousands of Israeli families to be displaced from their homes, just as it is unsustainable for tens of thousands of Lebanese families to be displaced from their homes. All of them need to be able to return home. So then you go to the question of what's the best way to achieve them being able to return to their homes. And it is our judgment that a diplomatic solution is the best way to get them back to their homes. Because if you look at what a military conflict would entail, it's hard to see how that gets those families on either side of their border back to their homes quickly. So that's why we continue to push both sides. We continue to push for a diplomatic resolution of this conflict.
Follow up on
that.
that.
Go ahead.
Can I follow up that? You say you're gathering information. How are you gathering that information? Do you expect to have an independent U.S. assessment to follow on Humera's question?
So I don't want to prejudge what we'll say in the days to come. I can tell you what we're doing right now is gathering information through all of the ways in which we usually gather information.
And have you been in touch with any Lebanese or Israeli officials?
I can't read out every contact that we've had in the last couple of hours. It's only been a couple of hours since this incident happened, but of course we're gathering information through diplomatic channels as well as other channels about this incident.
There are reports that the Iranian ambassador to Lebanon was also injured in this attack incident. Are you concerned about Iran taking advantage of this?
So we've seen those reports.
Have you seen any indications that they plan to?
First of all, apologies for interrupting in the middle of the question. I've seen the reports. I don't want to speak to what the implications might be before a report is confirmed, but certainly, as is always the case, we would urge Iran not to take advantage of any incident, any instability, to try to add further instability and to further increase tensions in the region. That has been our message to Iran since October 7th. Go ahead.
Follow up, and you offered a line on it, but just to make sure it's airtight. So the U.S. was in no way involved in terms of supporting this operation, offering intelligence. In no way was the U.S.
Correct.
Involved. Okay, and no part of the U.S. government, I understand you speak only for this department, but such disclaimers have been offered from state before. You were not given a heads up.
We were not aware of this incident, no. Hiba, go ahead. I'll come to you, Saad.
I know that you don't want to comment on what's happening, but till now we don't know the accurate figures of what happened in Lebanon. Some are talking about 3,000, 4,000. We have civilians, and there also the Iranian ambassador, also sons of members of parliament from Hezbollah blocs. The question, do you think that this is a legitimate target for any party to do that, whether it's Israel or someone else? Because there are Hezbollah targets in this, if it's attack or incident or whatever you want to call it.
So let me not comment with respect to this specific incident in answering the question, only because there are a lot of reports out that, in many cases are not yet confirmed. And as you well know, sometimes in the early hours, the reporting you see in the early hours tends to be somewhat off the mark. It gets supplemented with additional facts as time goes on. So I will just say what we believe are legitimate targets and what are not legitimate targets. Obviously, we believe that civilians are not legitimate targets for any type of operation, and that no country should be targeting civilians. No country nor organization should be targeting civilians. Members of a terrorist organization are legitimate targets for countries to launch operations against. And those are the principles that we hold ourselves to, and those are the principles we expect other countries to uphold in their operations.
Okay, Matt, and you were also saying that it's hard to achieve a diplomatic solution on the northern front between Hezbollah and Israel unless we have a ceasefire in Gaza. This would be more helpful. Also, Hezbollah is saying the same, but the Israeli wants to change the situation, the current situation. They don't want to go to October 6th. They want to change the current situation, not the same way it was before October 7th. Do you support that?
So what do you mean, in what way do you mean they want to change
In
the
what
situation?
way they don't want Hezbollah fighters on the borders? They want a buffer zone. I mean, are you able to achieve that?
So we do want to see Hezbollah fighters withdraw from the border and agree to the parameters of the UN Security Council resolution that was passed some time ago, which they have been in violation of. So we do want to see that. That is absolutely true and has been our policy for some time. And I would just note that with respect to one of the reasons it's so hard to get a diplomatic resolution without calm in Gaza is that's what we've heard the head of Hezbollah say many times, right? He has made clear that as long as the conflict in Gaza continues, they're going to continue to launch missiles and rockets and drones across the border at Israeli villages, Israeli towns, and so that is the impediment that we face, and we very clearly take him at face value, given the actions that Hezbollah has shown to be true over the past 11 months. It doesn't change what we have to do and what we're trying to do, and we'll continue to stay focused on.
Going back to Lebanon, you said that you consider targeting terrorists as a legitimate act. Then Hezbollah is a terrorist organization by the US. Does that mean that you support such operation that happened today and that targeted Hezbollah?
So again, when I gave that answer, I said I want to be very clear that I'm not answering with any specificity regarding this incident because we're continuing to gather facts on it. But in general, yes, of course we support operations to target Hezbollah militants who continue to launch terrorist attacks against civilians. Israel has a right to defend itself against terrorism and a right to carry out legitimate attacks against terrorists, not civilians, but terrorists. So as a general proposition, yes, of course.